and Dan.
Will and Dan. Will and Dan on SpiritLive Radio, the show that gives you, the people, a voice, shedding light on the latest around the RTA community, the Ryerson campus, and beyond. Thursdays at noon, Will and Dan on SpiritLive Radio.
Hey guys, this is Will and Dan at lunch. I'm Alan. I'm in the studio with
Daniel Kim.
And Ryan Vanveen. Nice to be back, guys.
Yo, Alan.
Yo.
Like my microphone is a bit messed up. Yeah, I think it's better. No, it's good to be here. It's Thursday afternoon. It's 12 o'clock, which means it's Will and Dan on SpiritLive Radio. Yep. Alan and I usually host this show. Will, our official host, is off saving the world and doing something important. But today we have a very special guest. His name is Ryan Vanveen. It's great to have him. It's great to have him on the airwaves of SpiritLive again. And Ryan, thank you for reaching out to us and wanting to be on the show. What's up?
Great to be back. First of all, Dan, thanks for having me on the show. It's been a while. If some of you listeners or viewers don't remember me, I was with Dan and Bilal Vakani on TSPN, the show that's airing on Mondays, currently on SpiritLive. I last was here in April doing the shows, but due to some unforeseen events, I'm no longer at Ryerson at RTA. So last couple of months have been very up and down for me. It's been kind of a tough experience, but I'm still hanging in there, and I decided to look up Dan to see if you had any open slots so I could just come on the radio and goof off again. So
awesome. Yo, it's great.
Gotta say, it's great to be back.
I know you wanted to bring up some things you want to talk about. I mean, we're not much of a music show. We're more of a talk show, and we just like to talk about everything in news, current affairs, politics, sports. Girls.
Oh,
jokes.
Good. I'm finally on a show where we're allowed to talk about girls. Fantastic.
So you're wearing a hoodie.
Yes,
and
ordinarily people would think I'm crazy because this room is 100 degrees on cool days. But I'm wearing this hoodie, and I'll be talking a little bit more about this later in reference to Trayvon Martin, all the mess that's going on with that in the States, and I'll be touching on that in a little while. But mostly I came today to chat about what's going on here with you guys at Ryerson and to talk about all the sports that's going on.
All right, do you want to start with sports or do you want to start with Trayvon?
Okay, let me just get this hoodie off because that's it's difficult wearing a hoodie wearing these things. First off, on my attack sheet for the day is the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
February 6th. I don't know if you've seen the chart yet. It was in today's Toronto Star. February the 6th, they had a 90% chance of making it into the postseason. Everyone said they were sixth in the East. They were on a roll. Lupul and Kessel were spectacular. The defense was solid. They were in sixth place. They had everything going. They were 90.05% chance of making the postseason. Since then, it has shot down. Like, you'd think we were looking at the stock market. It's unbelievable how far they've plummeted. They've stopped skating. They've stopped scoring. The defense is in total disarray. Reimer came back, fortunately, from his supposed concussion. It was revealed it was a neck problem. But after he got off to such a spectacular start, he's only won 7 of his last 23 appearances. Gustafsson, after stepping in fantastically, finally fulfilling his promise, has also sputtered off. And everything has gone into a complete and total tailspin.
There was a time when they lost like 10 out of 11 games, and then at the end of that, Ron Wilson got fired.
He got fired. That was basically
Rick Carla comes in. Yeah. He wins the first game.
Everyone thinks he's the Jack Adams Trophy winner, and then the next he's only won 3 since. So
exactly,
coaching is not the one problem. It's everything in the organization has just completely just fallen off the rails. You've got Brian Burke, who's basically it's Brian Burke against the world right now. He's facing pressure from the media. He's facing pressure from the fans.
Let me tell you something, Brian. Interestingly enough, Alan and I are attending a lecture given by Brian Burke today at Ryerson. He's coming to Ryerson supposedly, and he's not talking about hockey. He's talking about law, politics, and business.
Yeah.
And
no politics. I think just law and business.
Law and business?
Yeah.
I don't know if he wants to answer hockey questions. I don't think he wants to at this point. But at what point do we ask for Brian Burke's? I mean, he's been in Toronto for years.
There've been the fire Wilson chance immediately. Not after the fire Wilson chance, it became the fire Burke chance. But he's not. The whole problem with Burke is it's not really that of, because his model has been proven to work before. He won the cup with Anaheim, but up in Toronto, it's a different mentality. He's not playing with some Mickey Mouse organization out in California. He's playing with the Toronto
I'm sure the
Maple
people in
Leafs.
Anaheim has something to say about that. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, of course they have something to say about it. It goes quack, 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 quack. But this is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, you look at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Toronto is just ahead of Montreal, who's in dead last.
Right.
You're looking at the two Canadian teams from the original six era in dead last. These two are the most storied franchises in the entire history of hockey. No disrespect whatsoever to Detroit, who's going to make the playoffs once again.
They they have 5 games left to go, the Leafs, on schedule, and they only have 75
absolutely
points.
none of them matter.
None of them does matter. I mean, well, if you want to tank, get a higher pick.
Yeah, they're
Now's
currently
time to tank.
slated for going between 5th pick and 8th pick, depending on how they finish up.
Yeah, so
Odds are that now that they don't matter, they're going to win every single game anyway.
I
most
just hope
likely.
the Habs lose some more games.
No.
Aren't you a Montreal fan?
I am a Habs fan, and I actually have
right.
really good news.
Right? What is it?
Pierre Gauthier got fired today. Yes.
I mean, we saw this coming. It was
Yeah.
all over the news. I mean, there were rumors for a while that he might be fired, he might not be fired, and I think a lot of people in Montreal are finally happy that there's some closure to this. What are your thoughts on that?
Gauthier firing is basically the longer, drawn-out version of the Ron Wilson story. It's basically things were promised, everything stalled, and they're looking for a scapegoat. Camilleri got shipped out to Calgary,
Right.
where he still has an outside chance, and now it just happens to be Gauthier's turn because he's the one that said, okay, this is a team we're going to do well with, and they apparently haven't. So
Interesting. So do you like Carlisle?
Carlisle, I think he does bring a refreshing attitude to the Maple Leafs. I mean, you've heard all their players, Luke Shen among others, talk about how they felt like they felt really stifled by Wilson. They didn't necessarily come out and say Wilson was a terrible coach, but what they did,
he lost his players' trust.
yeah, it was the trust. Yeah, they stopped playing for him because they didn't. It's a different club that they play with Wilson under because Wilson has his own style. The players they're young, so they wouldn't necessarily come from or be willing to conform. I mean, you look at the biggest example, Nazem Kadri. Why else would he not have been called up? He's languishing in the minor leagues, a former number 1 pick of the team. He's got obvious talent. He should be up here. Toronto has a lot of good young players. I mean, everyone is agreeing that the Jake Gardner, Burke bringing him in, was a complete gem because he's someone you build a franchise around or at least build a defense around. He's going to be in Toronto for years if they're smart. And you look at Kadri and all these other guys we have in the minors, they have competent people in the organization as far as player personnel. It's just finding the right blend to manage them and make them play to their potential. Obviously, Wilson didn't do that.
I mean, we're talking about all these negatives that's happened, especially the last month. I mean, generally in this whole season, it was just a terrible season for the Leafs, and especially how it ended. What is a bright spot, do you guys think, in terms of this season for the Leafs? There has to be something.
Definite bright spot is Joffrey Lupul. Joffrey Lupul has been from day one, even though he was injured for a little bit, and he has been part of the slide that the Leafs have been on. He's been one of their stronger players. He's got 25 goals, 42 assists. This is one of his best seasons ever. He flourished under Wilson. He was one of the few players to come over and just absolutely take off. And the irony is when Carlisle was brought on, Lupul was let go by Carlisle when he was in Anaheim. So it was interesting, the media's portrayal of, okay, how's Lupul going to react to Carlisle hiring? And he's basically been the same player. But and he's just been nominated for the Bill Masterton Trophy. So that's really been one of the Leafs' better turns. Kessel, at the beginning of the season, he's played consistently all year because he had Lupul on the wing. He's played with different centermen. He's got Bozak. He's got all these different rotating people at center. But he, I believe, has had his best season ever. He's 6th in the league in scoring. Malkin's leading with 99 points right now. But Kessel, at this point, even despite the slump that he's been in, he still has 36 goals and 41 assists. And no one with the Leafs has had a point total that high since Sundin.
I want to sort of move away from the Leafs because I don't think any team that's second last in in their conference should get this much attention. I mean, the city already gives them this much attention.
One final point, though.
Go ahead.
You look at the one thing that's remained consistent despite the total downslide is fan attendance. You look in any other city in any other league in the world, the losers don't draw anything.
Yeah.
The Leafs have sold out.
Well, yeah,
every game.
but it is Toronto. It's the hockey's talent, and they will always continue to be sold out for the next 100 years, whether they win the cup or not. One word answer: do the Leafs make the playoffs next year?
If Reimer and Gustafsson... Oh, sorry. Yes, if Reimer and Gustafsson get it together. Sorry for the extra words.
No worries.
No.
Do the Habs?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Oh, actually, one question regarding this. Who going into the season, who was intended to be the starting goaltender?
Reimer, without question,
Now,
because of what he did.
Would that answer? Would your answer change now?
Absolutely not, because Gustafsson, for the length of time he carried the team, he played on most nights like an all-star caliber.
So you're saying
goaltender,
Gustafsson sort of took over that spot as starting
Gustafsson
goalie?
did take over it and give the Leafs doubt,
Yeah.
but everyone was ready to hand it back to Reimer upon his return. I mean,
and then he came back,
yeah,
and then
he's only won 7 out of 23 games.
so you'd say it's still up for debate.
Absolutely it's up for debate. They just brought up Runas from the Marlies, so now it's going to be a three-way race because he's got talent too.
The Leafs have not made the playoffs since 2004. I posted this on my Facebook yesterday. That was when I was in grade 7. I don't know how old were you guys were. Alan, I think you're in grade 7. You were pretty...
04, I was in grade 10.
Grade 10.
I'm the elder statesman of this group.
So, and since the salary cap, since they put in the salary cap after the collective bargaining agreement in the lockout, they have not made the playoffs. They're the only team in the NHL that have not made the playoffs. It was Florida and Toronto.
Right now, what place is Florida in?
Florida will make the playoffs.
Okay.
They are... let me look right now. Wait, what?
I heard they were in 7th or 8th. What are they right now?
No, they're 3rd.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was surprised too when I saw that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They're 3rd in the conference or whatever, but they're in the round 4th in their division.
Yeah,
so.
well, yeah. I mean, so
Tampa?
by the end of the season, huh?
Tampa?
No, Florida.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
Sorry.
so by the end of the season, it'll be evident that the Leafs will be the only team since the salary cap, since the lockout, to not make the playoffs. Out of 30 teams in 8 years, terrible. Anyways, we're gonna move on to our next segment. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us. We'll be right back. Tune in.
Dan are as cool as the other side of the pillow. So cool, in fact, that studies prove that they're actually cooler. Ice cold. What? Debating the latest and hottest issues and analyzing current affairs, Will and Dan always bring their best game. And so should you. Tune in to Will and Dan, Thursdays at noon, only on Spirit Live.
All right, thanks so much for tuning in to Will and Dan. We're talking a lot of sports, you know. Alan and I usually host the show, and we rarely talk about sports.
Well, that changed today.
Yeah.
But it's great. I mean, we always try to talk about different things and what might interest people, and I think it's good to have an expert here today, Ryan.
Well, I've tried to thank you once again for having me on the show. I've tried to touch on a bunch of different subjects. I'll be talking about some local interests in a couple of minutes, but yeah, sports are my passion, and Toronto sports particularly are my passion.
It must
I love
be
the
terrible
market up
days for you these days. No one's winning or anything.
Well, that could change if you look down south in Dunedin right now. There's a big story going on with one of our teams that is winning. And no, I'm not talking about that other team that plays on grass, the Toronto FC.
Which team are you talking about?
I am talking, of course, about our boys who are back in blue, thankfully, this year, the Toronto Blue Jays. They have basically turned heads in the spring training. They're 21-4, which I know is only spring training, but people are talking about the fact that this is a young club on the rise. Sports Illustrated has been raving nonstop about how well Toronto has been rebuilt, about the strengths Toronto has. They've declared Jose Bautista in the newest issue of Sports Illustrated out. They've called him Mr. Irreplaceable.
All right, guys, I'm going to stop you
ALEs.
right now.
Yep.
This is for both of you guys. I'll tell you one thing right now. the Blue Jays under this current. I talked about this last show when I was hosting the show. I was talking about how the Blue Jays will never ever win the World Series unless by fluke, and will never be a winning team to make the playoffs consistently under the current system of the MLB. And that current system includes no salary cap, which means that teams like Baltimore and Toronto Blue Jays are going to play against teams like the New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox, who have more money to sign better players, who have crazy revenues, TV deals, sponsorships, corporate sponsorships. Let me finish. All those things, right? They're competing against them, and there's no salary cap, so they could throw as much money as they get. Blue Jays have a limit, and Rogers is very strict and stingy with their money. So, maybe that's a bit harsh, but you can't compete with someone who has more money than you. Secondly, there's no it's an unbalanced schedule, more unbalanced than hockey or basketball. So the Blue Jays are going to be playing the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Tampa Bay Rays much more than weaker teams in the National League. With that schedule, it's hard for the teams like the Blue Jays to make it through. And thirdly, they changed this last year, or they're going to change this from no later than 2003. But they've added 2 more spots to the playoffs, right? In the MLB,
Yeah.
It was 8,
That's
but now it's
this
10.
Yep.
It's this year.
It's
It's
this
year.
Yeah.
Before that, it was 8. So it's either, if the Yankees win the division in the American League East, it's going to be either Boston or Tampa Bay before the Jays, most likely. That's going to fight for the wild card spot. So those 3 reasons, I think, luckily for the 2 more extra playoff spots, but those 3 reasons makes it hard for me to see the optimism that most Blue Jay fans like yourself, and Alan's a huge fan, see. What do you think about that?
Well, the first point about the Yankees and the Red Sox having these backers with this tremendous amount of money, you're right with the way they spend. But the great thing is that Toronto is now owned by what will become the largest media market in Canada. I mean, in a couple of weeks ago, there was all that thing about Bell buying all the Astro Media and all these media outlets. So basically, it's going to come down to a race who owns Canadian media, Bell and Rogers. But right now, Rogers is basically, by owning the Blue Jays, they've completely swept the board with owning all Blue Jays games, all Blue Jays telecasts, all Blue Jays websites and media. And the way the organization has turned itself around from a baseball perspective, Alex Anthopoulos, Paul Beeston from the ground up, and having Cito Gaston and Hall of Famer Robbie Alomar as advisors to the organization, and having a strong core of minor league talent that's come up and developed the way this organization used to have it back in the 70s and the 80s. This club, I would put them on par. If the bullpen can hold together and the starting rotation can avoid injury, I'd put this anywhere between... I'd say this is a good match for the clubs of 83, 84, of 85, the club that we have now.
Is Ryan being optimistic here?
No, I think he's right. I think in a couple, maybe not this season, but next season, we're looking at the playoffs. I think this season we're probably gonna get like a couple games out of that second wildcard spot.
Definitely.
And
you look at the way we
same
rebuilt.
thing though. The thing is,
but you look at the way we've rebuilt
short.
the biggest thing. Everyone got on Alex Anthopoulos because he didn't go after a big bat like Albert Pujols and Prince Fielder. We'll talk about them later. But the thing he said most was, we have to shore up the bullpen. The bullpen last year in Toronto was the league worst. We blew 25 saves. So you convert 17 of those 25 into a league that now has one extra wild card spot.
yeah,
In a and you add on guys like Jose Bautista, a healthy Adam Lind, Brett Lawrie, who everyone's saying is the future of third base.
Okay, then
this team is going to be a contender within 2 or 3 years. They may not make it this year, but it's going to be damn close.
Okay, how about this?
last year, if the second wildcard spot was there, we were only 4 games out from that spot.
Okay, so how much of this is
And they were in 2008. They were I believe it's 2008 or 2006. I would have to be corrected on that, but they were second. They passed Baltimore.
Yeah,
they were second.
They had 92 wins or something. But how much of this optimism that you guys are trying to sell me on is based on the 2 extra playoff spots that Bud Selig added in?
I would say only a small portion of it, to be honest with you. Yes, because
so this was still an 8 playoff team league.
Tampa Bay does have talent, but their pitching staff, like ours, is the way our bullpen was in question. I would question their starting rotation. True, they've got a lot of talent, but the sad thing with their former number 1 overall pick being arrested and everything, and their whole organization being sort of caught in the middle. If Tampa Bay's pitching falters, they're out. Yeah. And if Boston's celebrating the 100th anniversary of Fenway Park, so I would say it's sort of like divine planning that they'll make the playoffs or they'll be in the postseason run. They have to come back after that. For those of you watching who saw the last day of the 2011 baseball season, I have to say that was the greatest day of baseball I've ever seen in my life. That's the first time 4 teams in 2 different leagues went down to the last wire. You had New York facing Tampa Bay on one end of the country.
Probably one of
Boston
the greatest
and
games.
Baltimore for the American League wild card. New York's already in; they're fine. Boston had fallen from game 136 onwards. Both Boston in the American League and Milwaukee in the National League had just dropped. No, and not Milwaukee, Atlanta. Milwaukee made it to the postseason, but Atlanta, they had the NL East, and they were in the postseason for the longest time. Now they get to the last day of the season. The Cardinals get out and win their series, and they eliminate the Braves. While this is going on, same night, Tampa Bay comes back all the way back from a 7-run deficit to beat the Yankees. And while that's going on, Baltimore upsets Boston by a score 4-3 in the last at bat.
Okay.
And you call that the greatest day. That could happen again. That was like a once-in-a-lifetime day, but if that trend continues and you factor in that this Toronto team could actually be a contender, 1 or 2 more games go our way, you're looking at that between...
Yeah.
I always think that you are what your record is, and the 1 or 2 games that were always short of being the wild card, I think that just reflects reflects how far the playoff spot is just for us. I mean, there's this optimism every single season. The Blue Jays have not made the playoffs.
How do you know the wild cards will be in the AL East? You look at Detroit. I mean, they're basically, everyone's saying they're a lock for first place, especially since they got Prince Fielder. They're saying with Pujols signing the $210 million deal for Anaheim and Los Angeles, coupled with C.J. Wilson, who moved over from AL East champion Texas to that division. They're a lock for that. So you figure Los Angeles, Detroit, Texas, New York, Boston. There's 5.
Yeah, and that division just got a whole lot weaker with the Astros in it now.
Absolutely.
That's more wins going towards Texas and LA.
Yep. So, and that's a weak division anyway. So. Yeah. And with the new rookie that has that Cuban defector Cepedas, he's just hit his first home run for the opening series in Tokyo for Oakland. They've split that series. So
the Blue Jays have not made the playoffs since 1993. They open up the season. No, sorry, their home open is on April 9th. They start. You're going?
I'm going to the second game. I didn't get tickets to that one.
Tickets actually sold out within minutes.
Oh yeah.
And it's actually
15 minutes, I think.
It's against the Red Sox 3-game series Monday. I will not be going, but I'm glad that passionate fans such as yourself will go. I'm all for the Blue Jays to do well. I mean, think about a playoff game in the Sky Dome in September.
Yeah. Look at it this way. Last season we had 80-something wins.
80. We were just around the 500 mark. We were above 500.
So 81.
Yeah. This is with a team filled with rookies and young players.
Okay.
We're going to progress. These guys are going to get better. If they just grow naturally, we're looking at 90 wins. We're looking at 80, 86, 80, 86 to 90 wins.
Okay.
And if that keeps going, I'm going to say that next year we'd probably be second in the AL East, taking that first wild card spot.
Next year, not this year, not this season.
No, next season.
Because this is a team, of course.
We don't need to have career years. Nobody on this team needs to have a career year.
Bautista's already proven that he is the real deal.
Yeah.
I mean, even if his home run production, like, say he doesn't even hit 40. If he hits 30 and drives in 100, he's done his job.
Yeah.
Because he's a solid player all around.
Yeah.
So you look at a solid year from Bautista, solid year from Laurie. And then you look even further down. I mean, you got Eric Thames in left field, who I love absolutely. He's done a remarkable job. The competition with him and Travis Snyder, it's only going to spur Snyder to come back up because Thames and Snyder were carrying the Blue Jays offense through the spring with Bautista and Lind and Laurie.
I think by midseason, one of them is going to get traded.
Oh, definitely.
I think we're going to get Blanton from.
You have to get a starting. You get a number 5. That's where the key for the Blue Jays starting rotation is going to lie.
Yeah.
In the bottom 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Dustin McGowan, I remember when that guy came up. I'm rooting so hard for him to make a full recovery. I saw his near no hitter against Colorado, but. You can't rely on that. I mean, Jesse Litch, you can't rely on. He's always injured, and
he's a ginger.
No, that's. I'll leave that subject to you. But you look at Henderson Alvarez. He's got solid stuff, even though he only went 1-3 last year. He reminds me a little bit right now of Guzman, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But you look at Travis Darno, they're ready.
Yeah.
He's ready in the minor leagues. You've got David Cooper, who's always ready to spill in at first base from time to time. We brought in Ben Francisco. Congratulations, by the way, to 44-year-old Omar Vizquel, oldest shortstop in Major League Baseball history, future Hall of Famer, and used to play with Alomar when they were in Cleveland. Nothing got past that infield. And now he's going to bring one of the great things Anthopoulos did with the players he did bring in offensively, Jeff Mathis, Omar Vizquel. These guys are veterans with solid experience, and they can mentor these younger players in order to make them winners.
Okay. We want to get into our next segment, but it seems like there's a lot of optimism from both of you guys who are, I know, huge baseball fans. So, you know what? We're going to move away from baseball. Last point I wanted to say was I'm all for the Blue Jays. Rah, Blue Jays. I want to do well. I think they will do well.
Bringing back the blue. That's what I love. Bringing back the blue.
They will do well in the season. Yep. In the first few months. But
all I'll say about their spring training record, they're 21-4 right now. All that says is they can win with their top players and they can win with their minor league players.
Season started yesterday in Japan. Sorry?
Lowry's batting like 576.
Yeah. Well, let's not put too much stock.
He's healthy. He's going to be insane.
Let's not put too much stock into preseason, guys.
Yeah.
But the season did start yesterday. Ichiro ladies were going all over. The Japanese ladies were going all over Ichiro.
That was special for Ichiro to be on his home turf because he went through the whole thing in the offseason where he is, despite the fact that he's one of the greatest hitters ever in the league, in either league, he's still getting older. He's around 40 years old, but he can still play at a high caliber level. And for them to start the season in Japan, because baseball is looking to expand overseas now. They've looked at games they'd be playing in London. They've looked at games that they'd be playing in other countries in Europe, and especially in the Japanese market. So for them to go to the Tokyo Dome and play a game like that in front of all those fans, in front of all those Ichiro fans, that was more or less a tribute to both his mark on the game and to their passion for the game and for all the stars they've been sending over in waves ever since Ichiro.
Great player and great game. I didn't get up at whatever time.
Oh, no. 504 is a little bit for me to witness Seattle and Oakland.
Yep, I agree. Yeah.
All I'll say is congrats on his 4-for-4 game, 4 singles. Most of them, he's tied King Griffey Jr.'s record for opening day hits by a Mariner.
All right, awesome. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We're gonna talk about some NFL football. Exciting.
Just a little bit, but unfortunately not the football aspect of it.
Tune in to Will and Dan. For the latest in technology, sports, pop culture, and the media. Also featuring live interviews with the most talented and skilled individuals in and around the RTA community. Don't miss out on Will and Dan. Thursdays at noon, only on Spirit Live.
Thanks for tuning in to Will and Dan. It's Alan, it's Ryan, it's Daniel here in the studio, having a lot of fun, talking about sports. Some anger towards the Maple Laughs. Hey guys, here's a joke.
Not so much anger, just
here's
bitterness.
A joke for you guys. What's the similarities between the Titanic and the Leafs?
Gee, I don't know. What are the similarities between the Titanic and the Maple Leafs?
They're both good until they hit the ice.
Props on that one.
Not good?
My Tim Hortons roll up the rim record is about the same as the Leafs.
That's funny.
Thank you.
I always forget to do my roll up the rim after I drink. I just throw it out. I'm such an idiot. I swear I could have won
There's some years where people get on rolls. They've actually rolled back their prizes. Not to make no pun intended on the rollback, but they've rolled back their prizes because people were winning everything, and it was apparently costing them money. So they've skimmed back on the number
and
of free coffees, free donuts.
They got rid of the $10,000 prize, which was like the best thing on the whole.
1 in 20 to 30 attempts.
1 in 20. That's terrible.
Yeah.
My mom just won one coffee, or first coffee of the season yesterday.
My God.
So
okay, so let's get on to this New Orleans Saints bounty case or scandal. Ryan, what is this all about?
Well, essentially what has come out into the light is that for a number of games over the past couple of seasons, the New Orleans Saints defensive players, or in some cases some of their offensive players, were paid bonus amounts somewhere in the area of $10,000 every time something like this happened for going after or targeting or delivering hard hits or blows on star players or just targeted players on the
or
opposing
even
teams they
individual
played against.
performances.
Yeah.
Like
Individual nothing was off limits to these guys. Individual performances against the Saints, plays that didn't go in their favor, they would seek retaliation against other players. Little incidents, even off the field incidents, would be dragged into the bounties.
So over 20 players basically put in a fund, put in their money into a pot, and it was essentially a game within a game. Where
it's like Devil's Kangaroo Court. Kangaroo Court is like when players on a team where you do little things wrong, you put money into a pot, and at the end of the season you throw a party. This Kangaroo Court was really, it's like Devil's Advocate Court, where they put it in and they would target it, and if you were able to severely injure the player you were after, if you took him out of the game and thus eliminated him as a threat to your team winning that game, you were given a set
and that's not
amount of money.
only unethical, but the NFL is very strict in terms of having these games within games and gambling, and they're huge. They're really strict. As we'll talk about the consequences, they're very strict in terms of even giving gifts from agents to agents or players to players. They don't want any of this under the table things to go on, because these are ways that people can circumvent the salary cap, where, hey, if you do this, I'll give you more money, and this money will be under the table, and if you do this for me, and this also extends to gamblers. Will say, oh, I know inside information that this player is going to attack this player intentionally to injure him, then I'm going to gamble for this team. And it's sort of this corruption and politics that Roger Goodell wants to get rid of in the NFL.
The thing is about getting rid of the backhanded financial aspect of the NFL. He's facing an uphill battle, because you look at how much money goes into NFL advertising. You look at how much goes into NFL player salaries and ticket revenues. The Super Bowl alone is like almost $1 billion now per year. So you factor in all that, and these players, they play in the most violent sport in the world. You talk about players deliberately injuring each other. You can get paralyzed for life on the simplest play.
Yeah.
So it's in their best interest to get as much
it's
money
ethically
as possible.
and morally, it's wrong. Forget the
ethically and morally don't really enter into the fact that you've got about 50. How many is on a side at once? 11 players on the side on the field at one time, per team.
Yeah, I think so, or I think it's a little bit more.
Yeah, 11 or 12.
Yeah.
However many men are on the field at one time. You've got all these buffed up, high testosterone guys bashing into each other, trying to find the pig skin and get to the end zone before you get killed.
Yep.
So of course, thinking isn't really the only thinking that enters into NFL players' minds is get the ball, score, and make money from it.
Yeah. So this was going on since,
and don't get killed.
Supposedly this was going on since 2009, the year that the New Orleans Saints won the Super Bowl. This was going on for 2 years. Recent evidence suggests like this has finally been proven. Punishments and consequences have been given by the commissioner of the NFL.
Or in the process of being given.
Yes. Well, let me just say that right now. There were over 20 defensive players on the Saints who contributed to this fund and played these stupid games, handed out these bonuses, and so far Roger Goodell suspended Sean Payton, the head coach of the Saints, for the whole season, and he's the first coach in modern NFL history to be suspended at all. That's huge. The person who mainly organized this was Greg Williams, who was the defensive coordinator of the team, and people are now saying that did he do these things before 2009 when he was with different teams, and how long has this been going on? So they're still investigating. This Greg Williams is now suspended indefinitely, so who knows when he's coming back, if he's going to come back. And the general manager, who also knew about this but tried to shut it down, I think, but failed to shut it down, is suspended for 8 games. Not as harsh, but still 8 games. So these are really severe punishments in the NFL, especially when they're playing how many games?
Only 18 games a year.
18 games.
Is it 16 games?
16.
Oh, 16.
16
Oh, yeah,
games,
16 and then okay.
Sorry.
I'm trying to remember the Patriots. I basically measure every season by the Patriots.
Alan's right.
Yeah.
So 16
16
games, and so it does matter every games, and punishment for the players have not been out yet, but because Roger Goodell is going to first talk to the Players Association to see what they want to do about this, but expect severe punishments for them as well. I mean, it's hard when you have so many people involved in this, right? So I don't know how he's going to do it, but I do know that him and David Stern in the NBA are the two best commissioners in professional sports.
Gary Bettman's the best.
Oh, yeah. Gary
Oh,
Bettman.
yeah. Brilliant, yeah.
Whenever he comes out to hand out the Stanley Cup.
He
Oh,
loves
yeah.
hockey in Canada.
Yeah.
Huh?
He loves hockey in Canada.
He does love hockey
Yeah,
in
look,
Canada.
he brought the Winnipeg Jets back.
No, Winnipeg brought the Jets back to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
By the way, quick shout out to John Bartlett, who I interviewed on TSPN last year. He called it. He gave us the exclusive last year, and Dan, you were with us at the time, I believe. He said that Winnipeg would be getting a franchise by the end of that summer.
Oh.
And that was in, I believe, February or March. I did the interview, and 3 or 4 months later, the Jets were back. The thing that surprised me, though, everyone's money was on Phoenix. Phoenix stayed. They did somewhat all right this year.
Fairly, everyone thought
And
Phoenix was going to move, right?
Atlanta just came out of the blue. I didn't even hear about Atlanta.
But Phoenix,
until the last
everyone knew Phoenix was about to be bought or something was
minute.
going to happen.
They're talking about it again.
Well,
They're talking about it again, and now that
Phoenix hasn't been playing terribly though.
exactly.
But are they selling out? Are they
exactly.
selling
The
tickets,
Leafs
right?
Leafs are dead last, and they're selling out. The winning clubs can't get the fans.
I
That
guess
factors
means
in where
doesn't
hockey
belong in
matters.
the desert.
Yeah. And now that Quebec City has received plans for the new arena, it's only a matter of time.
No, you can't put a team in Quebec City. I don't think so.
Why not?
I don't know. It's just
I don't
the
know.
way it is.
No,
Just the way
the market?
the market's there, but the infrastructure of the city.
Oh, right.
Well, they
Arenas
said-
are a huge issue.
They but have you seen the plans? It's 400 million. I think 400 million. I'm not sure on the price range, but this is going to be state of the art. Everyone's got approval.
Yeah.
And now it's even the rumor is that it's got Gary Buttman's approval. He's seen the plans and he's given it the go ahead. But now it's an NHL caliber arena.
Yeah.
Now you got an NHL. You need an NHL team.
Yeah.
But there's even rumors that Seattle might be interested, and I've heard one rumor that said Saskatchewan might want a team.
Seattle might not be bad for an American NHL team.
Well, I think
They're a little close to
Yes.
Vancouver, but
yeah, but that's the only thing that
yeah,
does it. I mean,
yeah. But otherwise, I see no problem.
Vancouver would be a great spot to host baseball, but then all the baseball fans in Vancouver go to Seattle Mariners games.
Yeah.
So
A few more other punishments that the commissioner gave out was $500,000 to the fine to the team, which is chump change.
that's nothing.
That's nothing. Also, they did lose their second round picks for the 2012-2013 season, which is huge.
Depending on how they do, though, they still got their first
And-
round picks.
Also,
I mean, Drew Brees might have something to say about that, but still.
expect suspensions for the players. So let's just say the Saints will not have a full roster when they begin the season.
And of course, now
Our
that it's
head
out in the
coach.
open,
People are gonna go after the
exactly.
Saints.
Drew Brees is a walking target.
Yeah.
But the thing that everyone's getting is, this is no isolated incident, I don't believe, because
Oh,
this is just the
definitely not.
first one that's come to light to this magnitude. This has been going on for years. It has to be. It's professional football. You can't play football and not have this come up. I mean, you look at I don't know if you guys saw the ESPN 30 for 30 documentary on the Los Angeles Raiders in the 1980s and early 90s. Those kind of teams, their whole persona was being badass.
Yeah.
So you can't have those teams and then have them hated by other teams in the league, and they would send their best players after their best players to take them out. You can't say that this wasn't going on for years. This is just the biggest incident where they actually have dollar amounts. Anything you could put on paper will come back to haunt you.
The one thing I wonder is who exactly have they gone after, and who exactly have the Saints during that 2-year stretch actually gone out and injured?
There's been a bunch of players that
So they're
have
going to
been,
look at
that have
footage
been
and
rumored,
see
but,
who's been injured when they were played and who.
That's how
surprised
they're
I
going
haven't
to
seen a
determine the
list for that.
suspension. They're going to look at who hit who.
Yeah.
What was the extent of the injury? How long the player was out with that injury?
Yeah.
Was the player suspended or fined at all for doing something like that? And that's how they're gonna juggle it. The Saints this year, if it comes to light with whoever was involved, the team's gonna be gutted.
Yeah.
All they're gonna have left is Breeze and maybe Bush if he can get his act together
Exactly.
and get his hands off Kim Kardashian for 5
Interesting. We're
seconds.
talking about commissioners. I was mentioning how David Stern and Roger Goodell are two top executives and leaders in managing their sport. But Selig, well, sorry, what did you say?
And Bettman.
Not Batman. But
Selig not so much. Selig is kind of I wouldn't even say a push button kind of guy, because the only reason Selig became See, like I give him credit for what he has tried to do, but the only reason the owners brought him in was he came in as commissioner of baseball in '91. They fired Fay Vincent, who was then commissioner of baseball, interim commissioner, and they brought in Bettman, who was the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers. So he's had a stake in baseball for decades. But the thing was, look at his whole era. The strike in 94, 95.
Steroids.
The steroids, which was, in my estimation, was completely... It was a circus. It was an up and down, some of it blown out of proportion, other it was eventually chaotic, but the whole thing is he and Donald Fear, who is the Players Association president in baseball, he's now the NHLPA president. They were dragged before Congress and basically given the whip because their drug policies were too loose. Their salary cap, they have no salary cap. That's what caused the last strike, and he's kept baseball from collapsing totally. But I wouldn't say he's the greatest owner in professional sports by far. I'd say he's among the 4 top sports: baseball, basketball, football, and hockey. I'd say he's the lowest.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit of news next segment, so let's go on to that. So stay with us and do not turn that dial. We don't really have a dial. We actually have a website.
Can't get enough of the RTA community? Neither can we. Join Will and Dan on Thursdays at noon to get your full dose of the latest, the greatest, and the hottest surrounding the RTA community. Only on Will and Dan on SpiritLive Radio.
Okay, so it's Will and Dan. We're on the last segment of our show. Ryan is in the studio, Alan's in the studio, I'm in the studio. We're just talking about sports, having a lot of fun. So, but we want to go away from sports for a bit and talk about something serious. Something that's we could actually think about, something we should think about critically. Something that's happening in the States. Ryan is wearing his hoodie. Trayvon Martin. I've been reading a lot of things about him. He's the boy that was murdered. The African-American boy was murdered in the state of Florida by an Hispanic white man who shot him, who was a watch guard in a gated area, and he shot him. His name is George Zimmerman. He says that it shot him in self-defense. There's no proof of it. He has does he have a criminal record? He has a criminal record. He has some sort of history, and of course, a lot of people in the States are saying this action or this death was rooted by racism. Zimmerman keeps saying that he was attacked first. He was punched. Trayvon Martin jumped on top of him, started punching him, bashing his head against the sidewalk. I saw a video online where just moments after the whole incident, where the police officer and Zimmerman walked through the police station, and there appeared to be no injuries, no nosebleeds or anything. Trayvon's parents and of course, the African American community, a lot of the people here in Canada and America want justice because this guy's still walking around free. Yeah. It's hard to bring him to jail when there's not enough evidence. Who knows? There was not someone who could testify against all of this, but there has been a lot of support on both sides. I don't know what to make of it. What do you guys think?
The biggest thing I'm afraid of for the whole matter at hand is the whole incident started clearly over racial profiling. You look at the hoodie, you look at the image of a young Afro-American in today's culture. You think instantly of gangsta rap. You think instantly of all these high-profile athletes who are flaunting their wealth, but then you look at all the way down to the street level, to the regular kids who don't have anything. They come from poverty. You know, the Detroit, New York, and L.A., all these places, and some parts of Florida where this took place, they don't have anything. And they wear hoodies because they're emulating, it's part of their culture. They see these guys wearing hoodies, so it's part of their clothing that they wear. But people are saying, oh, well, why did all these young black kids wear these hoodies? Why did they wear, like, baggy pants, all these threatening-looking clothing? Because it's cheap. They can't afford designer jeans and fancy shoes and all this other stuff. It's just the clothing that kids wear. He was a 17-year-old teenager.
It's a culture and it's a style, but so you think this was is a racial issue?
It's racial. It's racial in as far as it was a stereotypical thing. I don't believe that because it hasn't really come out. Zimmerman's viewpoints have only come out through the police and through his lawyer. He hasn't said anything yet publicly, but the whole idea it's bringing to light everyone's concepts. I mean, racism is still a highly sensitive area in America, North America today. Biggest example of it, never mind the Trayvon Martin case, you look at the movie The Hunger Games that came out. There's people, I couldn't believe that they're getting on Lenny Kravitz and the people who cast him because they didn't think the character was black. But it's one thing to look at a character in a book, a certain way, and it's like, oh, I didn't know that, or maybe they cast him differently. Maybe that's a different change, or maybe I thought of him better than that. There's some racist people,
there's a tweet.
There's the tweets,
I think it was some girl said you made all the good characters black. I'm like, what is that supposed to mean?
And then the other one is like, I didn't feel as bad when this character died because it was a black girl. They picture the innocence of the blonde hair, blue-eyed Aryan, all that stuff. It's just a negative portrayal. It's been that way forever. Yeah.
She looked like an angel, though. Rue looked like an angel in that movie.
Of course, but the thing people can't get past is, and the biggest thing for me, one of the reasons I don't use Twitter and everything, people hide behind it.
Yeah.
You never see, all these quotes are posted as anonymous, and they take their accounts away so fast. Yeah. You know why? Because they can hide behind that label, the computer. They can hide behind that and say whatever they want. People are free to express their own opinions. I have personal opinions I love expressing. I've got no problem with freedom of speech. The point is, these people, the only way they can express it without getting beaten to death, which is what they want to do to George Zimmerman now, is that they hide behind Twitter, they hide behind Facebook, they hide behind these things where it's like, people wear masks. Yeah. Everyone's wearing a mask. Never mind who you are. Blue, white, black, red, green. Every one of us wears a mask of how we really feel about these issues.
People, we should save them.
Oh, God, they're the worst.
The police actually released a lot of information that the parents of Trayvon and his supporters were saying were there to incriminate his history. I think a quote from his mom, something like how they killed him and now they want to kill his reputation.
I don't understand why they need to do that.
Alan, there's rumors of how he did drugs, he sold drugs. His Twitter account, which I've seen before, was taken down. Some of those things were very thuggish. I'm not gonna lie. Also, he supposedly assaulted a bus driver, and he's not the perfect kid, and this has nothing to do with his murder or racism, or it's not just trying to justify his murder. I'm just saying these things are thrown out there by people to sort of incriminate his past and make him look as not the most typical innocent boy ever. That's irrelevant to what we're talking about. But do you think do you agree with Zimmerman at all in terms of, do you sympathize for Zimmerman? I mean, must have been a terrible a few days for him as well.
It's got to be tough for him because I think he just got startled.
Now. He can't go out.
Yeah.
He got startled.
He just got, if you see someone, I think for him, he just, freaked out when he saw someone, running with a hoodie.
Mm-hmm.
Which is...
in a gated, secure, a rather safe neighborhood.
Yeah.
He was a neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's...
I mean, he acted rashly, but... Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel bad for him only a little bit, but then he killed a kid.
Yeah, so he still should face... punishment for that.
Yeah, definitely.
The thing is that this whole thing has been built on is I can't even bring the word to mind right now. The fanaticism that's surrounding this on all sides.
Sad. It's tragic.
The reason that they're coming out and saying, "Oh, he's not the angel that that the media is portraying him to be," is just because it's one side trying to shut up the other side.
It's become a political thing, right?
Exactly. It's moved all the way up. It's reached the president of the United States.
Yeah.
It's got celebrities on the kids' side saying this is why there should be tougher gun laws. This is what these young kids.
People wearing hoodies now, such as yourself.
Oh yeah, the Miami Heat did the whole poster or the picture where they're all have their hoodies and their heads down saying "We are Trayvon Martin." And
Ryan, we're actually at a time. We have roughly 10 seconds left.
Oh wow, we are at time. I'll just say I fear for the future because if he's not after Casey Anthony, the justice system is going after everyone since Casey Anthony verdict.